Welcome to the New Flat Rate Podcast, a podcast for contractors who need help increasing their service tickets, creating working processes, and building freedom in their life. Today's episode is all about value. Where does it come from? What does that look like? And what does that mean? And now your host, Danielle Putnam.
Hi, my name is Danielle Putnam. I'm the president of the New Flat Rate. And hey, I'm really excited to introduce you to Michel. Chris is actually a business coach and consultant, and he does some equipment sales training for the New Flat Rate and some coaching with us, as well as a lot of other coaching, and he's an author. But Chris, I'm probably doing that extremely injustice. Could you please help me introduce you to our wonderful audience today?
Well, thank you, Danielle. No, you're doing an amazing job. And it's so weird. At this stage in my life, I start to say things like I own my own business and I get to do this and I get to do that and I get to be an author.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It really is cool. But I own my own coaching consulting business, and I do get to partner now with TNFR, which is really cool. And we've started doing this program, which I'm super happy about and super excited. And then I just finished writing my own book called The Red Chair Experience. Hence, I'm sitting in my red chair. This is it.
You're sitting in the red chair.
I'm in the red chair. Absolutely.
Wow. So, the Red Chair Experience.
Yeah. So it is, it's a daily inspiration for success in life and business. And it's really designed to help people kind of get a daily boost, right? I think Zig Ziglar said it best when he said, we all, struggle with motivation, daily motivation, but that's why we take showers daily too, right? We need that. We need that as part of it.
Yeah.
But it just really dawned on me that was something that was on my heart and something that I get to do every day myself. And so it's amazing just kind of watching that whole thing. And we're literally finishing up the process as we speak. And I should have book in hand within the next 2 weeks. So
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's super exciting. I mean, there's just a lot going on, and I'm super excited to be here working with you, obviously. So
yeah, well, we are too.
Hey there, quick reminder to stick around until the end of the podcast for story time, featuring longtime TNFR member David Hutton, talking about how he saved his business.
And Chris has worked together with Matt Cope, our VP, developing this new equipment sales training system. And Chris, could you tell us just a little bit about your background and how you got into being a consultant, coach, and kind of expert in equipment sales or sales in general?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been in sales for over 30 years. Can I say that quietly enough that nobody can hear? No.
You mean when the day you were born, you were selling? What?
Exactly. I came out of the womb selling. I was just
you're natural.
Yeah, thank you. But I've been doing sales for over 30 years, and through my experiences, the last 18 of which have been in the heating and air business. And I have been in sales management, even general management. I've run heating and air conditioning companies. And so I have a real understanding of the HVAC world, if you will, and even home services, because some of those companies worked with plumbing, and we had plumbing and electrical divisions. And so I was able to do those things as well. So that's where a lot of this came from. And I got the opportunity early in my HVAC career to learn how to build a price book. And I can say, honestly, I'm glad that people like TNFR exist, because I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And, trying to do that over the years and creating that as a business owner, that can be frustrating, right? But finding and developing all of those things over time was really cool. It was a great experience, but that's where I come from. And I've sold everything from mailing and shipping equipment to Energizer batteries to Lego toys to, I've had a lot of experience. And then food processing, I was there for a number of years before I came into the heating and air business.
Very interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Today, I wanted Chris to talk about his book and share that, and the Red Chair, was a big inspiration of his book. Can we talk for just a second before we get into our real topic of today about spending? I know John Maxwell talks about the importance of having a thinking chair, right?
Yeah.
So the Red Chair, without spilling too much even about your book, or maybe
We
do.
can. It's okay. I
You
mean,
know, like, is it,
yeah.
for example, in the corner of your house, and is that where you go and you, whether you're meditating or you're thinking or you're working on instead of in, is that your zone?
So, um, so let's do this. I'll tell you the background.
Okay.
So this red chair that I'm sitting in it's a red leather recliner, and it's probably 15 plus years old. Its original owner was my stepfather, who was my business mentor for a number of
Mhm.
years. Unfortunately, we lost him about 6 years ago.
I'm sorry.
And thank you. And he was such an impact in my life that, when he died, it was kind of like, now what do I do? Right. So
Hmm.
for a number of years, I kind of struggled with that whole, who's my mentor and who can I trust with business decisions and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. Right. Well, then my younger brother, um, very involved athletically and very popular where he lived in
Hmm.
South Bend, in the South Bend area. He had a hip problem because he played sports for a number of years. And so
Sure.
he just had this injury and it was uncomfortable for him. So he needed a chair. He
Mm.
had a chair like this that was just in shambles. And so luckily mom saved the chair and she said, "Hey, do you want the chair?" John says, my younger brother says, "Yes." And
Hmm.
so I went up, picked it up, and drove it over to him Thanksgiving of 2018.
Hmm.
2019, we lost my brother to
Mm.
suicide. And
Oh
that
gosh.
was too much for my sister-in-law and my niece and nephew to have in the house. It just was
Mm.
too much of a reminder.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law looked at me and she just said, "Would you be interested in taking this?" And I said, "Absolutely. I've got the perfect
Mm.
place for it. And we'll sit in my master bedroom, and in the corner, like you said,
Hmm.
this is the corner of my master suite."
Hmm.
And so it sits in the corner, and it's my place that I go and I meditate and I read and I pray and I do, just my daily kind of
Sure.
inspirational time, if you will.
Hmm.
But it is, and I believe that everybody needs a red chair, hence the name, the red chair experience. It's
Mm.
why I kind of developed that name for the book, was because for
Mm.
me, it's an experience. When I sit in this chair, it's not lighthearted. It's not necessarily joking around or things, but it can
Hmm.
certainly be those things, but it's really more of it's my place. It's my place
Yeah.
to go. And some people go out on the trail. Some people go to a mountain. Some people go to the
Hmm.
beach. Some people,
Hmm.
they have their place. Right. And this is my place. And
Mm.
so it has become that. And that's
Hmm.
really where it came from. And that's the whole idea behind it. So I jokingly say that occasionally I'll have conversations with the previous owners of the chair. Um, but there's truth to that.
Yeah.
But we all have our place, right? And we all
Right.
have
Right.
and if you don't, I would encourage you to find a place, and not
Mm.
necessarily you, Danielle, but you, listener. If you
Hmm.
don't have a place, I would encourage you to get one, because we all need that alone time. We all need that
Mm.
time we've got to take care of ourselves. And if we
Hmm.
don't take care of ourselves, then we can't take care of others.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
I hate to hear about your brother. I'm one of 9 kids. And so with 8 siblings, like,
Yeah.
siblings are very precious to me, and I have
Sure.
children, and watching their relationship to each other. And, I know that that's a really special relationship. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Thank you for sharing
Oh,
that.
thank you.
And we do all need our place, which leads us directly into what we're here to talk about today. Chris and I were on the phone a couple weeks ago, and I said, "Hey, we really need a podcast together and talk and just share awesome things with people." But in particular, I asked Chris, "What are you passionate about? What have you been studying, researching, or what's been keeping you up at night? Like, what's on your mind?" And that's a valuable, important question to me, because I know that in different walks of our business life and personal life, there's different things that we're into. So me personally, like, I'm kind of back on the leadership kick. Like, how can I be a better leader? And then I'm really into the management kick right now. How can I be a better manager, manage my business better? And so for Chris, I said, what is it that you're into, that you're really passionate about and would be willing to share? And Chris said value. He is really doing a deep dive into value. And that's something that we don't really talk about openly, honestly. It's like, hey, have value in your sales process with your product or something, but that may be as far as it goes. So I'd like to leave it there and say, welcome to the discussion on value. Chris, what has led you to that, and where are you in your value journey?
Um, there's a number of things that leads me to this, right? Because we talk about this from a especially in the heating and air, plumbing, electrical, when we're in these home services businesses, too often homeowners can look at this and go, oh, this is a commodity. I'm just going to get 20 different estimates, right? I'm just going to bring anybody in and see what the best price I can get. And then we as salespeople, sales managers, general managers, we go and we just say, hey, Danielle, you need to add value. You need to be valuable. You need to, and we just, to your point, we leave it at that. We don't talk further about what does that look like and how does that work and what does it mean? And so I've been having these conversations, and we've really done, like you said, a deep dive into this. And we started talking about, well, number one, where does value come from and how is it perceived, right? Because value is the monetary or exchange of a product or a service for for money or for something else, right? Maybe you do a bartering system and you barter your service for their service. So there's a value that's determined by that, right? And you have to determine, is it worth it, right? We have to, and this is what's really interesting, right? So we dive a little bit deeper into this. We go, we do this with our relationships. So we have friendships, we have romantic relationships, right? We have family relationships, and we determine the value of each one of those, right? Are they giving me what I need? Am I giving them what they need? And if we are, then it's great. If we're not, then we sit back and we evaluate and we go, is it worth it to spend the time doing this, right? So similarly with our business, are we providing value? Now, how do we do that? And it's not just, and it's funny because I get the answers of, well, they don't have me, right? The other companies, they don't have me. That's great. That's a wonderful feature, but tell me about the benefit for me, right? And we forget that value, there's two sets of values. One is the one that's set by the seller, right? The one who has the product or service, and they set a value. And that value is set by the cost of goods and the labor and the overhead and all the things that go into it. And you say it's worth X amount to me. So for a smaller company, a 1 or 2 or 5 person company, that value may be a whole lot less than a 50 person or 100 person company, right? There's more in terms of what they believe is the value, right? So you have somebody that says, hey, this is worth $5,000, and somebody goes, that's worth 10, you know, and you're not charging enough. And but that's one of the ways we value things.
Very
right?
Interesting.
Right. So then the other is the buyer. They determine the value. So you go to a car dealer and you say, hey, I want to get this kind of car with this kind of features and the, XM or, the navigation or the blah, blah, blah. These are important to me. And you go, okay, great. We've got one in red and there's a surcharge on that. And then we've got one in gray. If you don't care about red, gray it is. But if you like red, you're all over the red one. You're like, I don't care how much it costs. That's valuable to me. So you've created a value in your mind that says, is that worth $1,000? Is it worth $2,000? Is it worth $50? And so we, as the buyer, then determine what is the value. So now as the seller, I have to determine what is important to the buyer. And how do I do that? I have to ask questions, right? I have to ask the open questions that get you to tell me, Danielle, what's important to you? And so whether it's heating and air or plumbing or duvets, right? I'm looking at my, but you go, hey, what's important, right? What's important about this particular piece that I'm trying, or service that I'm trying to sell? How do I find out what's important to the person that's sitting across the table from me? And so you start to ask the right questions. The way that you build value is by answering those questions in a way that brings value to them, right? So Danielle, do you really like the color red? Do you like the color blue? What's your favorite color? Right?
My favorite color is pink.
Okay. So if I've got a pink vehicle, if I've got a pink heating and air system, would you be willing to pay more for it? Because, wow, that really speaks to me, because that really, right? So we have to ask the right questions and then address those questions with not just the features. And this is where I think we struggle too, as salespeople or as people that sell things. We struggle with providing not just the feature. Hey, here's the whiz bang, and this is really cool. Don't you like it? Well, no, because it doesn't mean a thing to me, right?
Hmm.
And we get into the what's in it for me, right? What's in it for that buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can address that with the feature in mind,
Mm-hmm.
it is a variable speed because it provides more comfort, more consistent, even temperature.
Mm-hmm.
That's the benefit. And if consistency is a problem for you in your home,
Mm-hmm.
I've just spoken to something that's valuable to you.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've added value to this conversation, right? So that's where that comes in. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And we
Mm-hmm.
think that just by me being here and I've got all this expertise. This is the other thing that frustrated me for a long time is as salespeople, or as people that sell, and I'm not trying to just call out salespeople because technicians can sell and
Sure. And
plumbers,
technically we
electricians.
all do in some form or another, in
Exactly.
different times in life. Right.
Exactly. And so how many times do you go into a situation and somebody goes, blah, and they just throw up all the information, every detail about this stuff, and they talk for an hour and a half, and all of a sudden you're just sitting there going, blah, and you get this glossy look on your face. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, that's great. I'm going to need to get 3 quotes. What just happened? Right?
Yeah.
I thought they
Yeah.
were,
It's
I thought they
so
were with us.
annoying. Like, dude, seriously, you're not even taking a second to listen to me.
You didn't even take a
Mm-hmm.
second to breathe, right?
Mm-mm.
And we've all
Yeah.
been guilty of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I love when Matt says that, by the way. Everything that I teach is things that I've done myself. Okay. So
Fair,
it's
right? Hey,
absolutely
and that's
it's
how,
fair.
and we learn the trial and error of it. We learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other day we had a team meeting and I pulled up in the dictionary.com, the word UHM or
Mhm.
UM, right? And I was trying to prove the point to my team of, hey, we pursue excellence. So when we're speaking or doing a Zoom call, we don't say, because that's not excellent and isn't a word. But as I pulled it up in the dictionary, is a word. And that surprised me. But here's what it means. It's not as I'm having a conversation saying the word yes, that's a word. No, it's a word when we use it to interject. So for example, here you are,
Mhm.
that salesperson that's just like throwing up on me. Excuse me, you're not listening to me. Is what I can think of is, you know what?
Nice.
That's when you say is we have to get in front of the salesperson and say, no, 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 no. I need my value. But
Right.
to your point, the buyer should never have to do that.
Yeah,
The seller has
exactly.
got to pay attention and care about the value of the buyer.
Exactly. And so the other piece of this, the value add that we have that we could give is number one, listening. If we
Mm-hmm.
ask the questions and then we listen, and we listen with the intent to understand,
Mm-hmm.
not to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
And so we may have heard that before, but the difference between being understood and understanding is simply this. And I heard this before. If you want to be interesting, be interested.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you want
Mm-hmm.
people to think you're interesting, then what do you have to do? You have to be interested in them.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle, I'm sure you've done this. You've had these conversations with people and they were glued to every word that you said.
Mm-hmm.
And they there's distractions all around, but their focus
Mm-hmm.
is on you and they're looking you in the eye and they're nodding. They're doing everything that they need to do as a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
They're interested. And so what do you think about that person? Holy mackerel, this person, they were interested in me
Well, I
and they
think it's
were
great. We've
so
got this great
interesting.
connection.
Right. And
Yeah.
they're
They
so
like
interesting.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as people that sell, one of the best things that we can do is number one, by being interested, understanding the person that we're talking to and the information that we're trying to understand, as opposed to trying to throw up on people and being
Mm-hmm.
understood or
Mm-hmm.
trying to be interesting, right? When we try to be
Mm-hmm.
interesting, we've all done this. I do this.
Mm-hmm.
When I try and be interesting, I look like a fool,
Mm-hmm.
plain and simple.
Yeah. So that's the second time today that somebody has said that phrase to me. And it's usually not one that is spoken very often. So interesting that it's the second time today. I had an interview with a candidate this morning that said, hey, over the last 6 years, I have learned seek first to understand and then to be understood, which is Proverbs. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what you're
Yep.
saying. It's wisdom from Proverbs is seek first
Yeah.
to understand and then to be understood. It's the How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale
Dale
Carnegie.
Carnegie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love to read that book about once a year
Okay.
because it's such a big slap reminder. Slap isn't the right word. I was thinking more of a hit by a baseball bat. It really is. And it's back to the basics
Yeah.
of caring about people.
Yeah.
Being interested in people, caring about people. We don't all have to be superstar excellent salespeople. I
Right.
am definitely not, but caring about people
Right.
and what they're interested in. And then we can show and build value.
Yeah. And when we learn how to, and this is one of the things I find with good salespeople is they do care. They're empathetic,
Mm-hmm.
and they are caring to the point where you see it and you feel it when you're talking with
Mm-hmm.
them. And again, they're locking eyes with you, and they're listening to every word you're saying, and
Mm-hmm.
they're attentive, right? And so
Yeah.
that's all of that stuff is super important. Of course, we can get
And it
off
builds
into
trust and you want to buy from them,
exactly,
right?
exactly. And
I mean, none
again,
of us want to buy
building
from a sleazy salesperson that we feel like
right,
A, is not being honest, B, doesn't like or value us or care about our wants.
right. Yeah, and they're not building value. I mean, by
Mm-hmm.
just talking or not listening to you, they're not building value. And when they listen to you, they build value. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all part of it too, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fascinating just to
Mm-hmm.
look into and kind of do a deeper dive on what is value, and how do we listen, or how do we understand the perceived value that our buyers have,
Right.
and how do
This
you
is
address that?
this is a different track than I thought we would go down today. Right?
You're the second person to say that this week, by the way.
Really? Because
Yes.
when you said value, I first thought more intrinsic value, like being valuable, feeling valuable, not in regards to the sales transaction.
Mm-hmm.
But value is value. So staying on the value track, could we chat for a second about employees and managing teams and that kind of value, right?
Yeah.
People want their intrinsic value. They want to feel valuable. They want to
Yes.
feel like they're doing a good job. But today in the workforce, it is difficult to be a great manager or business owner or manager when the landscape really has changed, right?
It
It
has.
used to be that everybody totally was going to work 40 hours a week because that's what it was, or plus, plus, plus.
Right.
But today, what I'm seeing and experiencing is more people want less, less, less. Like pay me for 40, but what's valuable to me is flexibility and time off and working from home. And so it's difficult. It's causing some friction on the employee-employer relationship.
Sure.
And I believe that it's time to get back to, wait a minute, let's value our people again and find out what's valuable to them.
Yep.
And not always just stereotype and say, okay, well, they just have their hand out. They're just being lazy. They're entitled. Because I'm hearing these words about this next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any comments on that kind of value?
Absolutely. So a couple of things, and I hear this from people, right? They want to complain about this generation or the one prior to that, right? The Gen Y, Gen Z,
I don't even
right?
know what
Millennials,
generation we're on.
right? But so the funny thing is the people who are complaining about it are the parents of that generation,
Totally.
right? So it becomes funny to me, because then it's like, well, wait a minute. So you're saying that we're the problem? Because we are. We set it up to be this way. But to your point, there's become a huge shift in the workplace, and the pandemic has really, I believe, has not blown it up, but really brought it to the surface and really exposed it in a way that we've never experienced it before. We were hearing rumblings of this before. We were feeling the rumblings of, man, I'm tired of working 50, 60 hours a week. I'm tired of you are expected to answer your phone at night. You're expected to answer your phone on the weekend. You're expected with nothing in return. No, thank you. No, I'm not a person that needs to be on the forefront, standing up on top and let's have a parade for Chris. No, I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in is, every once in a while, I need you to just say, you know what, Chris, you're doing a great job. Thank you. And it's the simple little thing for me that goes a long way. So I do this with people, and sometimes they're like, they look at me like the side eye, right? They're like, did he just say that? Because they're not used to hearing it. But I stop and I'll say, hey, Danielle, you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank
Right.
you.
And right. But we don't know how to take that sometimes because we don't hear that very often. And when we do, it's like, are you being sarcastic? Right? Are you being real?
Are you flattering me?
What do you want? Right? What do you want me to do? You want me to answer the phone calls this weekend? But
right.
You're
What's
right.
the expectation?
we've gotten away from the real value of what employees bring to the table. And we
Mm-hmm.
think that I saw a meme or an article the other day that talked about this very thing, right? Where the employer says, "Hey, congratulations, great job. You hit your numbers for the quarter. We're going to have a pizza party." Now, some people look at that and they go, "Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for doing that." Right.
Mm-hmm.
But some employees are looking at that and going, "So you spent $100 on pizza
Mm-hmm.
and okay, I'm gluten-free and vegan.
Totally.
Or
Right.
you spent $100 on pizza. Why don't you give me $100? Why don't you give
They'd
them
rather.
$100?" They would
Mm-hmm.
rather have, and it's not, it's turned to that because we've forced this other way on them for so long. And I say
Mm-hmm.
us because again, I've been part of
Sure.
this.
Sure.
But as employers, we've seen
Mm-hmm.
this go the other direction for too long, and we've had this old school mentality that says just work them to death until you can find somebody to replace them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of and oh gosh, I'd love to. I can't remember who said it, but there's a conversation between HR and a CEO, and the
Mm-hmm.
conversation goes something like this: HR, gosh, what if we train these people and they leave?
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO says, what if we don't and they stay?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now it
I love
becomes
that phrase.
this, right? Now it
Mm-hmm.
becomes this, we want to invest in them. And if they do better, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats. We wish you the best. If you
Mm-hmm.
found a better opportunity and it's best for you and your family or whatever, we will happily help you move in that direction. And that was one of the things that was taught to me when I first became a leader was find your replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Find the person that's going to replace you
Mm-hmm.
and do what you can to build up the team around you so that you can be replaced and in a positive way, right? How do you
Right.
look for your replacement?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went into leading these companies, number one, they were like, who are you and what are you doing? What we've never seen this before. And not like I'm some superstar, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just a different mentality because it was taught to
Sure.
me, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to pass that along. My why is very simple.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you with the Dale Carnegie. I
Mm-hmm.
do with Simon Sinek. I like to read Start with Why every year
Mm-hmm.
because it means a lot to me. And my why is really simple. I'm inspired to help others do what inspires them so
Mm-hmm.
that they may be fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there's nothing like helping someone to succeed. I
Mm-hmm.
want them to be better than I was. I did okay as a salesperson. I mean, I did 2
Sure.
million in sales and that was really cool.
Yeah.
But there were guys doing 3 and 5 and 10 million,
Wow.
right? And there are people that are doing far more than that now, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make them better than us? How do we encourage them to do a better job and to be a better person and
Mm-hmm.
succeed where we failed? We show them the door, right? We show them, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean the way out, but we show them the
Yeah.
opportunity that lays in
Of
front of them,
course.
and we encourage them, right? So as leaders, back to your question
Mm-hmm.
about how do we value the employees? Number one, I do this with the businesses that I work with when I coach them. I can't motivate your team. I tell them
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, I cannot motivate your team because I don't know what motivates them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that when I first got into leadership. I kept thinking, I'll give them $100 if they do this, or I'll give them
Right.
$100 if they do that. Right. And I
Yeah.
kept trying to throw money at them, which was maybe
Mm-hmm.
a motivator for me, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't for them. And I said to him, it finally dawned on me. I was like, this is frustrating. But I finally went to one of them and I said, Roger, I got to know, what is it that motivates you? And it was a simple question,
Mm-hmm.
but his response was amazing. He said, I want a day off with pay. And I went,
Mm.
really? I mean, I can work that out. That's easy, but
Right.
that's what you want? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And a thank you and a right. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
simple stuff, but
Right.
we don't ask our people, right? We
We
don't
don't.
ask the team that we work with, what
Mm-hmm.
is it that motivates you? And for, back to your question or back to your statement earlier, maybe it's, I work better at home
Mm-hmm.
when my kids need me, I'm there, right? When
Mm-hmm.
my spouse needs me, I'm there, right? Or I've got somebody at home that's sickly and I need to kind of be there.
Mm-hmm.
But they're working, when you support them, they're going to feel valued. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to want to work more than 40 hours. And not that you're
Mm-hmm.
going to push it on them, but they're going to want to do more because you believe in them and you take care of them, and
Right.
you give them the freedom to do and be an adult, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for
Mm-hmm.
too long, I think the workplaces have been, let's treat them as kids,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't allow them to grow up, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
allow them to make decisions and have the freedoms
Right.
and do all that stuff. And as a
Yeah, and
person
I
and
think
an
that
employee, that
sometimes we would
works.
be very surprised with what's really valuable to them,
Absolutely.
right? It's very easy to assume and put
Yeah.
in our own minds and our own projections. Oh, everybody on my sales team is going to want a new convertible. Maybe not.
No,
They
they
might
don't.
just need a set of tires. I mean, you know what I mean? Like they might just need it.
Yeah.
Or it could be something smaller, to your point, a day off with
Yeah.
pay. Yes, you can do that.
Because they want to go fishing.
Right. They just need a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're burnt out. You know, it's
Yeah.
a long time ago, I was in Bible school, and I was managing $1 million direct mail account. Like, it was actually a very big account to be
Mhm.
managing for an 18-year-old at the time. You know, I was a kid, and we
Yeah.
were doing these big Superdome events where we would have 80,000 teenagers in this huge dome event. And there was a lot of logistics, a lot of mailing, a lot of stuff. And I was working so much. And I was in school and college at the same time, just exhausted,
Mhm.
exhausted. And I had a manager that sat down with me, and he just reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 movie tickets. He's like, Danielle, can you just take the day off and go to the movies? Like, I will never forget that. And
Yeah.
to this day, that's like the best thing a manager's ever done for me. He
Right.
just handed me two movie tickets. You know, it's okay. Don't be so stressed out. Just go to the movies.
Yeah.
Thank you. You
Right.
know, so it's not always such a big deal, but I think sometimes we're afraid to ask our team what they care about because we assume it's going to be some huge thing that we cannot provide.
Sure. Sure. And something as simple as it's Friday at noon and you go,
Mhm.
you've been busting your butt all week and
Totally.
something's, clearly you need some time. Do me a favor, shut down. I mean, if there's
Mhm.
something you need to finish it now, but
Mhm.
shut down and go ahead and take the rest of the day and enjoy
Mhm.
it and
Mhm.
recoup, do what you need to, find your red chair, right?
Yeah, isn't that
But
the truth?
no, find
Yeah.
that time.
I'll never forget, it was Thanksgiving a couple years ago, and we at our company had a big software release that we were doing, and we were waiting for the Apple Store to release this new release of our product
Right.
on the in the Apple
In the
Store.
App Store. Yeah.
Right. And so we were waiting and waiting, and we were pushing refresh and pushing refresh, and we've been waiting all night. It was like a really big deal for the team, but it was the
Right.
day before Thanksgiving. It was the Wednesday, and everybody got off at noon. And that was just
Yeah.
known that everybody got
Yeah.
off at noon. And so at
Yeah.
noon, half the team leaves.
Right.
And then us that were working on the development project, we're like not leaving until it's done because we
Right.
couldn't. Like, we
Right.
have to finish this today. We're on deadline. And
Yeah.
we're working. And at about 4:30, I remember walking downstairs, and I was like, what are you guys doing here? And
Hmm.
everybody else was still here when I thought they'd all left. They were
Oh,
downstairs
wow.
playing cards. They're like, we're waiting on the team. Like,
Oh,
they got off at noon, but instead of going home
yeah.
with their family, they're like playing cards, just waiting to celebrate the
Hmm.
release with everybody.
Wow.
Isn't that special?
Yeah.
But my point, to your point, is sometimes, yeah, give them the day off, give them the flexibility. And then it really builds the
Mhm.
freedom for them to give more when they want to, so
Yeah.
that they don't feel like all you're doing is taking as an employer.
Yeah. When was the last time you took your team out for a lunch and didn't talk about work?
Oh, never. I never go to lunch.
Well, but
Like conviction.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, when was the last time you said, hey, let's meet at the IHOP or let's meet at the Cracker Barrel or
Oh my
let's
gosh,
meet
it
at,
has been years
yeah.
since I
What if
have
you,
personally. I hope everybody listening has done it way
yeah.
more recently than I have.
But
To your
just
point, what an easy thing to do.
take your team and talk about their family, talk about things that
Mhm.
are interesting to them and
Mhm.
get to know your team. I mean, and hopefully you do. Hopefully you know your team
Mhm.
and hopefully you've gotten the time and the experience with them and you know what makes them tick and you know what is motivating to them. But
Mhm.
if you don't, I mean, start with the simple things and it's the little things. And it may
Yeah.
just be that, Danielle, you're doing a great job. And I don't want you to think that I don't notice it. I do. I see
Mhm.
it and I appreciate it. And it means a lot. Or a
Mhm.
handwritten note. When was the last time you hand wrote a note to somebody? Right.
Mhm.
Those, I tell you what, I do that for my girlfriend every once in a while. I'll write up a note, I'll handwrite it, and then I'll stick it in the mail. And
Mm.
then, 2 days later, she's like, I got this. Thank you. So, and
So special.
but for me, I think about that and what it would
Yeah.
mean and what it does mean when I get those kind of things. And
Mhm.
I think, why not do that for others? Right.
Mhm.
And it doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but why not?
Right.
I mean, we're so far from a handwritten note, right? When was the last time you
We
did
are.
something like that? Man.
Yeah, it is far. I sent somebody a handwritten note because they did a keynote address and it was excellent. I sent them a
Yeah.
handwritten note afterwards. And a year later, they said, Danielle, that note really stood out. Thank you for that. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I didn't even remember I did that. You know what I mean? Because I don't
Yeah.
always do those things.
Right.
But to your point, it makes such a lasting impact.
So that brings the value. I mean, that bring this whole thing full circle, right? Those are the little things that can add value to that relationship, to that working relationship that you have, to the people, and get them to, and you have to be sincere about it, but do these things with sincerity, and you'd be amazed at the length that they will go to for you. A valued employee will go the extra mile, and you don't do it for those reasons. You do it because you care about them. You want them to work a normal life or have a normal life. And,
Yep. Same goes with customers. We've talked about the sales experience and then the employee experience, but same with customers, appreciating and finding what's valuable to them and reaching out every once in a while. And it's not difficult to do small touch points with our customers of, hey, I know you're interested in this. I saw this, thought you might like to know what's coming up, right? Even customers want to be thought of. And it goes a long ways when they know that you as their service provider actually think of them.
Yeah.
Oh, my kid's name, or you knew that there was this circus in town I might want to go to. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, simple things.
Yeah. And again, it starts with simple questions. What is it that motivates you? And they may not know the answer to that, but give them a chance to think about it. And don't forget, come back to them and say, have you had a chance to think about this? And they're going to, they'll get around to it. They will. They'll tell you what motivates them if you're genuinely interested. And that helps you because now not to manipulate. Now you know how to work with them. Now you know how to help them, right? And hey, if you can do this, then here's 4 tickets to the ball game this weekend. If you can make it, man, please go and take your family, enjoy, but whatever it is, right, that motivates and helps people. And so when we do those things, people will feel valued, and they are valued, especially when we get down to doing it with sincerity. So.
Chris, I really appreciate you being here today. I feel like you have given us some really great nuggets and reminders that all of us need to be reminded to look for the value in other people and to help pull that value out and have understanding for it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Yeah.
I'm so glad you were. How could people get a copy of the Red Chair Experience? How could they purchase it? Where could they find more Chris Michel?
Well, so as we speak, it is literally being it's in production. So we don't have a hard copy. We are so close. I would tell you that you can go to coachchrisconsulting.com and you'll see a tab called the Red Chair. And if you click on that, very soon there will be a landing page called the Red Chair Experience that you can just type in on your web browser. It'll take you right there, and you'll have the ability to order a book or books. You can order signed copies only from there, but you'll also be able to find it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and that kind of stuff too. So, yeah.
Excellent. Great. Well, I hope everybody does definitely reach out, stay in touch with Chris, and build a little bit of a relationship with him if you can, because he's got a lot of great wisdom to share, and definitely check out his book.
Thank you again, Danielle. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. We'll see you later.
And now for story time with David Hutton.
We came to the new flat rate out of desperation, to be quite honest. It was sort of our last resort. We were down to like our last $10,000 or $15,000 in the bank, and it was like, a very big initial investment for us to join up. And but numbers don't lie. If you start tracking numbers, they will tell you things, and our numbers were telling us we have to make more money. Ironically, our overhead was higher when we started than it is now, percentage-wise, and our tickets were $400, $450 average tickets. They weren't terrible tickets.
Industry standard ones.
Yeah, really. It's like, how are we going to essentially charge our customer more for the same product? It's not easily doable, and there's a lot of people in town where we're from that the pricing is all over the place, and so we were sort of priced right in the middle, hourly rate wise. Joe focusing more on HVAC calls, me focusing on electrical. And we noticed it started doing exactly what they said it was going to do. People were picking silver options a lot of the time. We had customers that...
And for people who don't really know what that is, like how much, if you're down for it, like how much price range increase was that? Like what did that do
we
for
ran
your
the numbers,
company?
After we started using the system, and we easily doubled our numbers. I mean, we had tickets in the 8s on average. And then before COVID, I mean, we were tracking to $1,200 average tickets. It honestly saved our business because there's no way that we could have doubled our prices without, offering our customer more service.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's easily done any other route. You know what I mean? Making your own pricing books and spreadsheets and things. That's a lot of back end work. And then you have to build it in front of your customer. 9 times out of 10 on these service calls, I can get on the page that we need. As soon as the diagnostic is done, I can find the page within a minute and be ready to present. Once you get using it and familiar with it, it's pretty easy to navigate.
To learn more about Chris's book, The Red Chair, check out his website at CoachChrisConsulting.com. Thanks so much for listening. Have a platinum day.